Now to discuss the Cybersecurity Levy and SERAP's rejection of it, we have with us Temitope Kolade, Senior Manager and Lead ESG and Climate Change Service at Andersen. You're welcome. Good afternoon, Kolade. How the introduction of this levy, how it's going to influence operational expenses for financial banks and also entities?
Okay, actually, I think for banking institutions, it's not meant to impact their operational expenses as much, particularly because there are clear exemptions in the Act and in the provisions of the Act, and includes things around intra-bank transfers, things around transactions involving banks' internal accounts, suspense accounts, clearing accounts, and all of that. So expectedly, it shouldn't impact on the bank's operations in themselves. But when it comes to other businesses, apparently it would, except for the fact that there are also exemptions when it comes to things around salary payments and loans and all of those, right? But in terms of, I think it's down to individuals and the sort of the businesses that would have to make some value transactions, and then you have to be paying maybe about 5,000 on a million for every transfer that you make, and that could be a lot going forward with all other transaction costs that's people already suffer on transfers.
Okay, so is there a middle ground for both the institutions and then the customers, whereby they could try to adhere to this cybersecurity levy without potentially impacting the customers and their transactions or the services to customers?
Really and truly, I think, yes, there could be some midpoint somewhere, right? But it's going to be a bit tough because, again, this is the law, this is the levy, and it's meant to impact on how people really do business.
Okay, then. So regarding the eligibility of the regulation, is there a way or perhaps maybe standards that regulatory bodies could employ to assess eligibility for exemptions from the cybersecurity levy?
Sorry, you talked about the exemptions. I didn't quite get that.
So I'm asking if there might be a way whereby bodies could employ, to try and assess the eligibility for exemptions from the cybersecurity levy, particularly with specific exemptions for certain transaction types, and how will that oversee and enforce these criteria?
Okay, apparently it's the bank's jobs, and if you already go into the platforms of some of the banks, part of the fields that you would see to fill in are fields around the purpose of a transaction. And I think that once people have the purpose of the transactions to fill in, then it's easy for the banks to determine if those transactions qualify for the exemptions or not.
Okay. So that aside now, let's talk about these funds after they've been gotten. Following the growing frequent cyber attacks that we've been having on financial institutions, the funds that are raised through the cybersecurity levy, how will they be distributed to bolster cybersecurity infrastructure and capabilities within the banking industry?
It's asked to say, and the reason is because the Act typically provides, or basically provides, that the fund is going to the office of the NSA. And so the banks have been dealing with cybersecurity in the way they could best deal with it before now. So it's unlikely. I find it difficult to see how the NSA is going to redirect the funds to the banks to use it to deal with the cybersecurity challenges that they do have, except that the government really does have anything in plans on how to deal with this, because the fund is going to the NSA really.
So it is assumed that this is supposed to perhaps maybe put some infrastructure in place. That's why customers are being levied with this amount now, isn't it? What exactly could that apparatus be like? What exactly are we looking at them building, perhaps?
Usually what the banks are doing is that they do have the infrastructure, they have capacity building for their staff, they have data protection trainings, and they have a lot of work that they do from that point of view, right? When you talk about infrastructure, expectedly, we'd also see that maybe government will begin to put certain things in place to ensure that when messages are sent, there is something to monitor messages at one point or the other, and maybe that would help. But it's challenging to see how the funds will be redirected from the Office of the National Security Advisor to individual organizations to ensure that they do that. I think for the most part, the banks will continue to do what they're already doing. Maybe they could do better going forward.
Well, thank you very much, Temitope Kolade, for joining us and giving us or shedding a little light on the matter. Thank you.
Problem.